You're listening to Oppositional Forces. Bad guys for good reasons. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Oppositional Forces, OP4 for short. I am your host, Scotty Don't, and with me today is my co-host, Mr. Frost, the last Yoden from the frozen north. Mr. Frost, say hi.
What's up?
And we are coming to you today from our glorious, humble beginnings in Smash Labs Rage Rooms. The Rage Room. So it doesn't get any more glorious than today. St. George, Utah was absolutely wonderful.
It was beautiful today.
Oh, so beautiful. And being such a beautiful day brings us into the topic for today, which is watching your six.
Counter surveillance.
So, Mr. Frost, we've talked about this a little bit already. We've dove into a couple of the rabbit holes, stepped in and out of them. Situational awareness, thinking, being safety-minded. What is it that we're trying to do here as we take that next step and building up on everything that we've talked about with counter surveillance? Why is that important?
Well, as I take a deep breath into this, you and I had this discussion before. I think that counter surveillance is very productive of just knowing if somebody's watching you and taking those steps to pay attention to your surroundings. That's where situational awareness comes into play so much, and being aware of the routes that you take, where you go, being predictable, being able to see. And I think kind of covering this, I think that we should kind of cover that idea. I feel like I'm kind of hemming and hawing because I got a million things going through my brain about counter surveillance, and you and I talked about this before. My stance is, maybe we should talk about surveillance first. However, I'll play the devil's advocate as we talk today about counter surveillance, because I think that counter surveillance and surveillance kind of go hand in hand. You have a different view than I do in the order in which we talk about it, but all in all, it's still something that needs to be talked about and something that really should be in the forefront of our mind, even with situational awareness or just your everyday life.
Right. So kind of to bring everybody up to speed on our grumpier than old men, conversation we were having earlier as we argue like an old married couple. For me, I think that especially for the layman listeners who are not professional practitioners of physical security, surveillance, intelligence gathering, the people that you and I know really well, investigators, cops, I think counter surveillance is a more important trait. Whether or not you have an understanding or a grasp of how to conduct surveillance, you should know what it looks like from the other end. And that's why I kind of wanted to dive into it from this direction, start with counter surveillance, work our way into surveillance later, likely maybe in the next episode, just so that people have a strong understanding from building up where we were with situational awareness and safety, and then pushing that envelope for them so they understand how those things start to compile for somebody who's looking at them for whatever reason. So I wanted to kind of define the terms a little bit, as I like to do. And so just so that everybody's on the same page with us, that they understand the very basics as we start breaking into this. Surveillance is secret or overt, continuous watching and tracking of a person, group, place, or object to collect data on their identity or activities. Counter surveillance is watching people who are watching you.
Right.
And that's about as basic as I can break it down.
Right.
There's a lot of reasons why, somebody might be conducting surveillance. Some of those things are like somebody who's looking to choose their victim. So when I'm looking to do something nefarious, I may not always know who my target is.
Right.
So maybe I'm watching a block or a business, or, a gated community or something like that. And I'm trying to collect the information that I need to pick out the weakest of the herd.
Right.
So, if I'm looking for that weak, wounded animal, if we want to stick to the same analogy, I'm out looking for that next victim. Another reason somebody might be surveilling you is to embarrass you. Ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, a coworker, somebody who's looking to shine a light on you and your business, to bring about, some sort of professional or personal demise.
Well, a great thing like that is you can go on YouTube and see like the pie in the face things to politicians or to movie stars or anything like that. Somebody with substantial, media presence or press. Another thing is like the fashion shows with the fur stuff for a long time, people throwing red paint.
Right.
Because it gets, they're paying attention. They're seeing like this is going to happen. So we're going to make it known to everybody that we don't agree with this.
Right. And so, continuing on, with your example, I'm not just going to stand at the entry point, at the front doors and see if I can get somebody.
Right. I'm going to try and figure out a way to get in there.
Right.
And be up front and be able to get the most out of what I'm doing.
Right. And that takes surveillance, understanding, where does the staff come in from?
Right.
What time are they going in? What pass or card or badge is everybody wearing?
Right.
And, can I get a picture of it so that I can replicate it?
Right.
And all those kinds of things take, a certain level of sophistication and surveillance.
Right. And I think, I might be jumping a little ahead of what we're talking about, but on a bigger detail, you're going to have a counter surveillance team. Like
detail
in like, an executive protection situation, because, you're going to have that team that's going to be looking for somebody who's doing surveillance on you. And that's the counter surveillance team of, oh, we got somebody that's following us around, or we got people taking pictures of what's going on. Is it just somebody, some crazed fan that's just, oh, that's so-and-so, or, you're doing something like that. That's like the Secret Service has a department solely set up for counter surveillance. That's all they do.
Right.
That's it. And
when you're dealing with someone who makes a lot of money or just found themselves in, the rap game, or, they've got OnlyFans, clout, or whatever it is, you're going to start seeing, people come out of the woodwork because there's crazies.
Right. Right. And that's what part of, what keeps, the EP industry, the executive protection industry, kind of almost valid because of those people.
Right. And it's a growing industry. Right. Every day, there's more and more people graduating from, the reputable institutions that teach executive protection, because every day another, millionaire or celebrity is made, and those people have to be protected.
Right.
Like we talked about from before, in one of our previous episodes, a high net worth individual can go from the CEO of a small tech company to a billionaire overnight when his stock soars and his board says, hey, guess what? Now you need kidnapping insurance and you're getting a security detail.
Right. And you don't get to pick them. You don't have a say.
Right.
They're going to drive you around if you want to continue to do this, or we're going to vote you out.
Right. And those people are going to be in your life every day until you are well retired.
And even then, maybe otherwise, just because.
Right. Right. Exactly.
It's like the president. They get a detail for the rest of their life, for pretty much the rest of their life, because maybe there's trade secrets or there's whatever information, or
they know what happened to Kennedy.
Right. Nice movie reference. Anyways,
my car is going to blow up on the way home.
Right.
Other reasons somebody might be surveilling you is one of the big things right now is identity theft.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, you'll hear a lot, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and so
I know
it drives you nuts. Everywhere we go, I've got something playing in the car. One of the big advertisers right now in the podcast realm is a company who I'm not going to shout out until they start paying us. That their business is protecting people's their homes from being taken over unlawfully. Somebody files and signs your name to a false deed transfer,
right?
And now you don't own your home anymore, and then they take out a second mortgage on it, rob you blind, and before you know it, there's a post on your door that says, you're defaulting.
Evicted. Yeah. You're evicted.
So identity theft, property theft, if I'm looking for an open opportunity to find my way into a nice neighborhood, a ritzy house, an electronic business that sells electronics.
Well, not even that. Look at gas stations, the card readers.
Oh yeah.
People ripping off card readers. You're not the target necessarily. It's just you use your card at the pump.
Right.
Or maybe inside the gas station or somewhere like that. It turns into, they're just going to take your information. They don't care who it is, but they're going to, some guy in Russia is now buying steroids off of your card, and you're trying to figure out why you have $1,000 missing out of your account.
Right. So, there's a lot of different reasons, that someone might become, your next nightmare. Oftentimes, it's somebody looking for, that easy opportunity. Sometimes you are a specific target.
Right.
I'm thinking of an example right now. I'm not going to call out names or anything like that, but I was contacted a couple months ago by a good friend of mine. She had been the victim of, somebody wronging her, taking advantage of their friendship, and the bad guy in this situation became obsessed and started following her, taking pictures and sending her pictures of her car in front of other people's homes. Like, oh, why are you over here? What are you doing? You've been here all night. Why aren't you home? Or was planning his trip to work every day around her schedule so that he could drive past her on the road and wave, gingerly, hoping that, she would see the error of her ways for having blocked him and pushed him out of her life. So stalkers are real. They happen to everybody.
Everybody.
And right, wrong, or indifferent, they happen. And maybe there was something that you could have done about it, the woulda, shoulda, couldas, but now you've got somebody that has attached themselves to you for whatever reason. And if you're not taking the necessary steps on a regular basis to recognize when you've picked up a tail, you're going to be in a world of hurt at some point when they get what they want.
And when he says tail, he means, somebody following you or kind of tracking your direction. I mean, with I love the technology of Apple and the Apple, what are they? The AirPods or whatever they are, the tracking pods.
Oh, the AirTags.
Yeah, the AirTags. I love that idea. I love the use of them, but here's the downfall of them. They're super easy to get. And now anywhere that there's anything that can be pinged off of it, it's not hard to track a car.
Right.
I mean, it's just one of those things like, where somebody is all the time. And if you're not paying attention, you're getting pinged.
Right. Yeah. Surveillance just became so much cheaper in the last 20 years. Smartphones, AirTags, key loggers,
right.
The little pinhole cameras that you can run off a 9-volt battery for, 36 hours at a time.
Well, you don't even need to do that anymore. I mean, there's not that I have them or anything like that, but chargers for your phone, if you can get around somebody, and they're white or black, generally white or black.
Right.
And they have a little red light on them, and right below, if you're not paying attention, has a little pinhole camera on it.
Right.
You replace that with somebody else's stuff. Suddenly, now if there's a connection, it's always plugged in. It's always streaming.
Right. So if you have somebody that has decided you are their next victim, victim being a very broad term today, depending on what they want from you, what are some reasons, what are some ways rather that you can recognize somebody that's surveilling you?
Just off the top of my head, paying attention to somebody following you. Maybe it's a couple of cars back, that same car every day. I mean, sometimes it's just you live in an environment where I get off the same time as my neighbor, but I don't know that neighbor. And you notice they take the same turns that I do. They stop at the same lights. They're always behind me. They're always like 2 or 3 minutes behind me. But you have to be aware of that. You have to be able to identify. Every day I come home from work, I see that car. I see that car. I see that dude or that woman. It doesn't even have to be a guy. That woman in the same car. And it's always there. It's always there. Or they're, I'm not going to jump ahead, but, taking different routes and things like that. But just being aware of the suspicious person that's maybe staring at you all the time.
Right.
Like they see you and you look at them and it's like, it's not real creepy, but it's creepy enough to where you feel a set of eyes looking at you.
Right. I've got an image in my head of the Truman Show. Do you remember that movie?
Vaguely, but I know what you're talking about, surprisingly enough.
So in the Truman Show, you've got Truman going about his regular day. He runs into the same people at the same place at the same time doing the same activity every day.
Right.
And so if you have something like that, this may be a situation where you're being surveilled.
Right.
If if someone can set their watch by where and when you're going to be, all they have to do is be doing something mundane in the area, and they can watch you do it basically without question.
Right.
Now, granted, everybody has their routines. So you may see the same person walking their dog every night at 9:30.
Right.
You might see, the same guy, standing at the same crosswalk every day at, 8:45 in the morning as you're commuting to work.
Right. Or the same janitor waxing the floors because you like to be 15 minutes early to work.
Right. But there's other things that can stand out to you that let you know that somebody's there watching what's going on, that it's not just some regular activity, some easygoing, jogger out for their morning run kind of thing.
Right.
So if you've got, a dog walker, right? But they walk around the same block 8 times. That's it. They don't vary their route. They don't change it up. They're just walking around the same block over and over and over again. And you notice, that this sticks out to you like, I've seen these people, this person over and over and over again. Maybe it's not for you, right? But if you walk your dog, wouldn't you go, well out to point B and then turn around and come back?
Right. I mean, and if it changes, something changes, because if it's an actual dog walker, to be very honest with you, if you have an entrepreneurial mind and I saw you walking your dog, I would probably address you, be like, hey, as you can see, I walk dogs, and, if you ever need my service, I'd love to help you out type of thing.
Right. Well, I mean, and I'm just even thinking of, the jogger or the person with their dog,
right.
Walking around.
I'm taking it very literal when you say dog walker, but
right.
I understand what you're saying.
And when we get into the really sophisticated end of it, is the same telephone pole being worked on 4 days in a row? Is the
right
is the same, what do you call them, the door-to-door salesman or something? Are they walking around the same neighborhood day in and day out?
Right. Have they knocked on your door 4 times and then say, oh, I forgot I've already been here?
Right. Oftentimes, these are just subtle hints, subtle clues.
Are they putting stickers on your mailbox? Do you have a strange sticker on your mailbox? That's a great way to be an identifier of like, I know there for a while they were having that problem with people robbing homes. Like the door-to-door salesman would say that with the cable company.
Mm-hmm.
They're not with the cable company. You know what I mean? And then you notice a sticker on your mailbox and you don't think anything of it other than, well, maybe it was one of the kids or something like that. But
right.
In actuality, it's like, oh, this color sticker means they're home during the day.
Right.
Or
you've been identified as a single woman who lives, at home, and
right. None of the other houses have anybody there. So, there's a target.
Right. So that's one of the ways that you can start to open your eyes a little bit, stretch your horizon out when you're trying to identify more so what's going on in the world around you. Once again, ties into that whole situational awareness thing. One of the things that we talk about in the more, advanced levels of counter surveillance is if you see, like a pile of cigarettes somewhere, somebody's been somewhere all night long smoking cigarettes and tossing them in the same spot.
That's me. Especially on a long detail. If Sam, you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Shout out to the trash pandas.
Yeah.
But, if you've got a vehicle that's parked just a little bit of ways, but there's somebody in it and they've been there for hours. They're no longer waiting for, their sister or their girlfriend or whoever to come out and, because they're getting ready to pick them up and take them on a date or waiting on whatever. If they're there and they've been there, that's another strong indicator of they're there for whatever it is that they're doing. They're engaged in their activity where they're sitting.
Right.
Sure, they could be waiting for someone to come home. They could be a contractor, waiting for the client to come back and let them in to get the work done that they need to. But if you're there for 2 hours, that's something that should stand out to you.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with being that nosy neighbor and kind of just paying attention to that. I think that, I used to, with one of my ex-wives, she was always so worried about what the neighbors were doing. Always. And it drove me nuts. But in the same aspect, I liked that she did it, because she would always be like, oh, this guy's been parked out here all day. This truck's been parked out here all day. And knowing very well that you can't park on the street at night, you know what I mean, in the neighborhood. And that car is still there.
Right.
It's like, okay, what's going on? Suddenly it's a red flag.
Right.
And then it turns into, well, what are they doing? Why are they there?
Mm-hmm.
And then I get inquisitive, and then I'm that jackass that likes to walk up and be like, hey, man, what's going on? You know, if somebody's in there. But, you know.
Yeah, your neighborhood Karen is not always a bad thing to have, because they're usually the person a lot more willing to go stick their neck out and say, excuse me.
Yeah. What are you
You
doing?
have been here for 2 hours. I have alerted the authorities.
Right. And that's not a bad thing, but at the same time, well, we won't jump into that. But, you know, it's not bad to be nosy. And it's not bad to be rude when it comes to things like that. You know,
I know how much you love to be rude.
Well, I do. I do. But I mean, in the situational awareness class that I like to teach, I'm not afraid to even tell people, hey, back off. Like if somebody asks me what time it is, I don't know. Or I'll walk across the street, or I'll tell them to stop. Stop.
Right.
You're too close. You know, I have a friend that's mutual up in Salt Lake that, you know, he was picking up his kids from a show, and there was somebody following them, like literally following them for whatever reason. I mean, his daughter is very attractive, and she's 18 or whatever, but they were at a show, but she was like, hey, this is kind of a wilder show. Will you come pick me up? And they were walking to the car, and he literally could tell somebody was walking behind them and kind of following them. And he stopped, and they stopped. He literally took out his weapon, and, you know, that infamous noise of click, click. And it was loud enough to where that person scurried off very quickly.
Not exactly a recommended move.
No, I totally agree with that. But I mean, it's that's what I'm getting at is
right.
That, you know, he had the situational awareness of realizing that they had parked a couple blocks away because it was such a busy venue that they had to walk from the door to the vehicle that he was picking his daughter up from.
Right. You know, and that kind of ties back into what we had talked about before about trusting your gut.
Right.
That intuition can play a really strong role in protecting you in a situation where you are being surveilled.
Right.
And when you learn what the signs are, hopefully, you know, that sort of cognitive dissonance that you may have against picking up the subtle cues, if you can take anything from this episode today, it would be to have that sort of extra awareness that pushes your mind in that direction. So now when you see something stand out to you, you at least question.
Right. So what are some of the steps that you think that would be, you know, you notice with maybe somebody following you in a vehicle, or what are some of those steps that you think are useful? Because I'm sorry, I'm just trying to tie this in with, you know, being followed and situationally aware.
Oh, sure. Well, so there's two types of surveillance. You've got the overt, which is somebody who's being obvious about what they're doing.
Right.
And then there's somebody that's covert, which is, you know, they're trying to be secretive about it. And obviously somebody who's being overt about it, they're going to stick out to you faster than anybody. A really close, tail on the road, somebody who's gone out of their, you know, you cut them off in traffic, whatever the case may be. Now they're on your butt, you know, right, for 6-7 blocks, or they've pulled their cell phone out, you know, in the store, you know, because they think that you're, you know, one of them Trump supporters, and, you know, they're going to follow you around the store now and, you know, harass you and surveil you.
Yeah. FAFO. That's my mentality.
But the covert ones, it's not nearly as easy to pick up on. And so if you have a situation where you're driving around or walking around or whatever the case may be, you might find yourself in a situation where, like we talked about, somebody who's been sitting there for a long time, maybe they make subtle eye contact with you, over and over again, or you notice that they're holding their phone obscurely. You see it a lot on like subways and public transport and
the gym.
And at the gym, somebody's, trying to grab a picture, on the sly, but their phone tilts in just a way you're like, that looks very much like somebody's trying to take a forward facing picture, or video. If you're driving around, somebody takes, 3 sides of a square. So you're going around a block and you say, I feel like I've noticed this car for a couple blocks now. I'm just going to make a quick loop around this block. If you make 3 right turns and they make 3 right turns, they're following you.
Right.
If you're walking around and you notice somebody, kind of in your periphery, and you go into a less crowded area, and they continue to make their way towards you, that's also a pretty clear indication that you're being followed.
And how do you combat something like that?
So there's a bunch of things that you can do. Some of them,
basic.
Some of them can kind of teeter on the paranoia side.
Right.
Number one, and I'm sure your parents and your grandparents will tell you, shred everything. You get bank statements in the mail, you get subscriptions, medical documents, whatever the case may be. If it has your name, your address, any kind of other personal identifiable information, PII, you need to be shredding that stuff.
Or peeling it off of your prescription bottles.
Right. Anything that's going to go in the trash that can be dug through later. Now, much love to my law enforcement people. Once you take your trash out, it is fair game to anyone.
Unless if it's behind a fence.
Unless it's behind a fence. But once the trash has been taken out to the curb, anyone may go through your trash. They don't need a warrant. They don't need permission. It's not a crime anymore. If you threw your mail away in there, it's not mail fraud.
Right.
You literally sent that stuff out to the curb with the purpose of discarding it. And now anything that's in there, and think about all the different things that you throw away, somebody can read through all of that and start putting a picture together of who you are, what you do, what you like, what package you got in the mail,
where it came from,
all that kind of stuff. So we've talked about varying your routes before. I'm going to kick this dead horse again, because not only should you be varying the routes that you take when you're walking your dog, when you're driving to work, but you should be taking illogical routes at least, a couple of times a week. If you're driving to work at the same time every day, taking the same route, you line yourself up to be able to be ambushed, whether it's in your driveway or when you get to work, or somewhere in between. And so if you leave 15 minutes early one day, you leave, 5 minutes late the next, whatever. It depends on how far you got to go, how much traffic you got to fight, the kind of leeway you have wherever you're going.
I mean, even if here in Utah, everything's a grid system.
Right.
So, 9 times out of 10, you can kind of connect on side roads no matter what. So, just adding to what you're saying is maybe take the exit before.
Right.
Or the exit after you normally would take.
Sure. And if you make it illogical, maybe it takes you a few more minutes, but that's okay. You can account for that. If you left 15 minutes early, you can take 15 minutes more in the drive. And if they don't know where you're going, if they don't know where you're going to end up, then, that's an easy way to spot somebody who's on you and that gives you the opportunity to shake them. If you feel like you have someone following you around, whether it's in your car, whether you're on foot, you're at a show, concert, whatever, make your way to somewhere that has cameras and a lot of people, and then make a deal about it.
Right. Make a scene.
Make a scene. One of the things that we like to tell people, because most police stations and fire stations now have, what do they call those? The safe, where parents...
Safe haven.
Yeah. And so, oftentimes it's used for divorced parents to be able to...
off and
to exchange their kids. That's a great place for you to go and honk your horn a handful of times, get the attention of, the fire department or the police department to come out and say, hey, that car that's parked across the street has been following me for 6 blocks,
right.
Or maybe they decide, hey, this isn't worth it. He just pulled into a police station. I'm going to keep going. Right. And then you can go in, plead your case like, hey, can somebody follow me for the next couple of blocks? Make sure that I don't have, somebody following me. I need to get home, whatever the case may be. Which, goes into the don't be afraid to be rude or invasive.
Right.
If you feel like somebody, is photographing you, recording you, following you, and you have the opportunity to do so safely, make a deal about it to them. Hey, what are you doing here?
Right. Or why are you taking pictures of me? I mean, in a public space, that's hard to combative. Hey, I don't want my picture taken. You can say it.
Right.
But you're in a public space.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But when you make that known and you're very loud about it of like, hey, don't take my picture. I would really appreciate it if you didn't take my picture. When you start saying things like that, people start looking.
Right.
The people around you will start being like, oh, that dude took pictures of me too. Or why is that guy taking pictures? You know what I mean? And then you'll get the Karen, or you'll get, that dad that, especially like at a park.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's been standing there taking pictures of kids too. Oh, what's he doing?
Right.
And now he's whoever or she, it turns into, oh, I'm under the spotlight.
Right. Yeah. One of my favorites, is calling somebody a pedophile in public. You can't run fast enough.
Yeah. Even in a joking, like I will joke with a lot of people and say a lot of sideways shit.
Right.
Do not get me wrong, but I will not. I don't even care how well I know my friend or somebody like that. I would never say, what are you doing, you fucking pedophile? Because I know what the reaction is, because I know what my reaction is.
Well, genetically, we're all in this together, right?
Right.
And we see people group around, different things. Take kids into that equation and watch everyone around you suddenly become like ready to die for a cause.
Right.
This dude's a pedophile. I saw him taking pictures of kids. And no, I'm not.
No,
as they
no, that's my kid over there. That's my kid over there. He's just getting some pictures of him. They're quick.
Right.
Quick to find an answer, or they're really quick to get out of the environment.
Right. I mean, because at this point,
scarier than a mama bear coming unleashed.
Oh, 100%.
I will take an angry dad over that any day. And don't get me wrong, my kids are grown. You mess with my kids and there's
consequences.
Yeah, we got some problems. But
right.
Let a mother, or even a mother that knows the kid, get messed with. Oh, it's a beautiful thing of violence.
Right.
It's just beautiful.
So, if you are willing to and can safely do so, confront someone, make it their problem.
Right.
Another great way to do that is you're never wrong, in my opinion, to call in a suspicious person. Cops, half the time, are not, unless you're in, a great big city and they're running calls all day long. There is, especially somewhere here like in St. George, Utah, there's never enough going on for these guys to stay busy. And if you can get one of them off the street from pulling me over for speeding,
thank you.
all the better, right? So don't be afraid to call it in and say, hey, I have a suspicious person or a suspicious vehicle. They were taking pictures or they've been sitting there for 3 hours and I'm really concerned about what they're doing. Right. You might be blowing the cover of a private investigator, because this has happened to me, that, was sitting there, waiting for boyfriend to go out to the bar or, husband to go out to the bar and go pick up a girl and go to a hotel.
Right.
But if it's a situation where you're concerned about your safety, your neighborhood safety, you might be doing your neighbor a solid. You might be doing yourself a solid.
Well, see,
so I don't think it's wrong.
I don't either. And I think that this is where we've lost its luster. Don't get me wrong. I don't know my neighbors, but I think that my neighbors know who I am. You know what I mean? I think that that's a necessity of, you don't need to be buddies and grilling on the weekends and stuff like that. But introducing yourself to your neighbors and your neighbors knowing each other is a sure thing, because you create a bond of like, hey, I noticed that there was a new car parked in your driveway. Is everything okay? Or do you have somebody new that's moved in? Or, because you get those nosy neighbors that are quick to, they like to be, helpful. Everybody likes to be helpful to an extent. I got some neighbors that moved in just across the way from me, across the street. And I think they'd moved in like the day before or something like that. And they had somebody from out of town meeting them. And I'd noticed that somebody had moved in, but I was just there. And the guy was like, it's probably the only black guy that lives in this neighborhood. And as sad as this is, because it sticks out like a sore thumb, yes, like I automatically knew that it was there and I could direct the gentleman to that particular house.
Oh, that guy? Yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah, I know.
So, talking about communities, we used to have this thing when people knew their neighbors. You had like community watch programs.
Oh, yeah.
When I was growing up, there was a sign in every cul-de-sac, all the suburbs.
Right.
Everybody had like that community watch, like the weird looking I don't know where they picked that image from.
Who knows?
But I mean, it was something that told you, hey, we've got enough people in this community that pay attention. So you should be aware when you come in here, we're watching you too.
Well, yeah, it's like units. The perfect example is like the wives, the calling trees of the wives when we were deployed.
Right.
Like I remember one of my ex-wives, she was like, why is the neighbor coming over and asking for my phone number and stuff like that? Because she was not aware of how that worked, but it was, our command, everybody kind of knows everybody. And then it turns into, hey, if we get information, we can share with that right away.
Right.
And you get your higher up command, like the officers and things like that. Those wives have that calling tree, and it turns into, you may have saw on the news, something happened in an area where somebody is, it's, hey, they're okay.
Right.
Or, hey, we haven't heard anything yet. This is what's going on.
Sure. And nowadays that we've got into a more technological age, it's never a bad idea to have a Facebook group or WhatsApp or, some sort of social media, accounting of who's in your circle, who your neighbors are. There's one I'm thinking of in particular. It's called Neighbors by Ring. It's an app that connects you to all of your neighbors in these little social communities where you can exchange information about and pictures of, hey, this guy's going around soliciting, and it's a no soliciting area. If anyone can pick up like a picture of his license plate or something like that, because our HOA prosecutes that kind of stuff. Or, hey, this creeper was leering over my fence, or, hey, somebody lost their dog. Is this your dog? There's lots of different ways for, people in kind of this modern age of technology to connect and transfer information to each other in an effective way. And I think that's another great way to break up somebody's surveillance, because when you're working together, as a team, then it becomes all that much harder for people to, to take advantage of an open situation, which is another reason why I'm a big fan of take this information, even if you're not sharing the show, with people, take this information and run it out to your tribe. Let them know, what you're doing, why you're doing it. Hey, I picked up this little tidbit of information, that I found, really effective. I'd like to implement this amongst our family, or friends or neighbors, whatever. Mm-hmm. So, another great way, when confronting a situation with surveillance, we have this beautiful thing called live streaming. You can live stream to Facebook. You can live stream to YouTube. I'm sure you can live stream to, half the other social media apps.
Yes, you can.
And if you can live stream, you should live stream an interaction that you're going to have that could potentially go hostile at any moment.
Right.
Because if you get caught up in a situation that you either are or are not prepared for, that video is already out of your hands no matter what happens. It does not matter if the phone gets taken from you. It doesn't matter if your phone gets broken in half or damaged in some sort of altercation. The initial part of that video streamed to wherever it is that you wanted it. And then when that stream ends, it is there until you go back and remove it.
Right.
So you are creating an evidence chain that cannot be broken by the person that, is, that may, become a serious problem in your life.
Right.
So, another thing, I think this is more important, than some things because of how much we like to look at our phones in public spaces.
Right.
And our laptops, sitting in Starbucks, soaking up the free Wi-Fi. You should have screen privacy protectors on your electronics.
Right.
If you have, the wherewithal to pick up anything on Amazon today, or, wherever it is that you want to buy this stuff, I highly recommend it, because somebody could be sitting right next to you and has no idea what you're doing on your screen.
Right.
So, what's another? Help me out here, Mr. Frost. I'm trying to pull some of this stuff out of my brain.
Well, like I am facing with right now, privacy on my Facebook. I struggle with, I like to make some things private and I like to make some things public, but I try to keep everything private and just friends. And I find that, because I don't align with some people, that having it public and some of the things that I post on my Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, that I get a lot of hate. And it's not.
I'm sorry about that.
It's not like a political thing or anything like that, but there's just some of those people out there that just like to throw a lot of hate because you don't align with their views. And it can be really frustrating for something that, I want to share publicly, but I can't because, I have to deal with some of that situation.
Right. And, so that electronic surveillance can be a really big problem nowadays too. I know when I first started dating my now wife, she likes to brag about how not too long after I introduced myself that she knew just about everything about me. Right. Because she had dove in to my social media to all of my, online accounts and profiles and stuff, and kind of dissected little bits of information about me, and voila, made, a blanket determination on, ultimately, to be fair, was probably more information that needed to be viewable to the public.
Right.
And now, she is quite proud of the little private investigator that she is. So if you look at your social media accounts, there's so many different things that we could go into, and I'm sure you've seen post after post about it and ignored. There's a 1,000 things that we put on social media that you shouldn't. There's too many things nowadays that are just shotgun blasted into the ether, public release, and now anybody who has any interest in you whatsoever, whether they saw you on a dating app, they saw you on LinkedIn and thought you were cute, they want to know more about you, they wrote your name, down from the receipt that you had at the restaurant, and they were your server. Now they can know anything about you these days. And half of it is totally public accessible information. The rest of it, you've been putting out there yourself. I understand why everybody wants, to share photos of their kids on their first day of school. But right. When you do that, when you've got the little chalkboard, sign that they're holding that says, I go to this elementary school and I'm starting, in the 5th grade, and this is what I'm wearing today. This is, what my name is and my teacher's name.
Especially for like human trafficking, that is the perfect, you're setting up your own ad for somebody who wants to do that.
Exactly. And so you are publicizing at that point. And sure, you think, hey, my friends and my family, they love my kid and they want to see how, well he or she is doing. But you need to make sure that you're only disseminating that amongst your close friends and your close family. I've got plenty of friends on my Facebook I've never met in person. And so I don't post anything about my kids. I don't want you to know them. I don't want you to know anything about them because it's none of your business. Where they go, what they do, how they look, that's my family. And you know what? If my family wants to see them, I'll either send a little group text or they can see them at the next birthday party, bar mitzvah, right. Whatever. So there's a lot of ways, even if you don't think you're being surveilled. It may not be used today. It could be used 5 years from now to create this clean picture of who you are, what you do, what you're about, and ways to get into your life. I think we referenced this before. What's the name of that Netflix show with the psychopathic killer that gets obsessively, in love with and stalks women? I think it's called You.
You were talking about it. I've heard about it, but I haven't seen it.
It's a great example of what it is that we put out there for everyone to see and how quickly someone can take that information and piece it together.
Right.
So a good measure for counter surveillance is not leaving breadcrumbs for someone to pick up. Go peel the stickers. Go peel the stickers off your minivan right now.
Please. Take
the names off. Take off the little stick figures of how many kids you have and what gender they are, what their favorite sport or hobby is. Take off the, my student of the year or student honor roll, whatever, at this particular school.
Right.
Get rid of the vanity plate that tells everybody, what your favorite, activity is or what your favorite hobby or what profession you are. Get rid of the things that you blast out to everyone because you're so, and this is going to sound demeaning, but welcome to the bad guys. You're so desperate for everybody's approval for the strangers you've never met that you're willing to tell them all of these things about you so that maybe Though you will never meet them, they'll respect you.
Right.
Or like you. Take it out. Lock down your social media because electronic surveillance is a ever-growing and more dangerous activity. And I think that's it.
Right.
Like,
absolutely.
I mean, I kick the dead horse, as much as I can and as often as I can. But when we start talking about surveillance and tradecraft, spycraft, these things are going to become more apparent. And as we get into these other episodes that break down the who, what, when, where's, penetration testing, social engineering, hopefully those things will start to bridge what we're talking about in these episodes and help you understand why we warn you against all this kind of stuff. If we can spend, the first handful of episodes of this show helping you understand what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, and what you can do different, then I think we're going to have a strong foundation for the things to come. Because as much as I want to talk about pick and locks and neuro-linguistic programming and, cool spycraft stuff and having, all these guests that we are bringing into the show, before we bring them all out and start, laying this all out on the table for you, you have to understand it starts with you and it ends with you, right? So if you want to keep us, the bad guys, off your front doorstep, out of your computer, and keeping your family safe, these are the steps. This is what you're supposed to be looking out for. Lock your door. Lock your phone. Use a VPN for your computer. If you are messaging people with any kind of sensitive information, you should be using something like Signal, the Signal app, peer-to-peer encryption. It's just these simple things that you can do to help mitigate the risk in your life of somebody outside on the street or all the way in like India or China,
right,
who are trying to take advantage of the kind-hearted, wonderful person that we all know you are. So what do you got for me, Mr. Frost?
I got a lot of things, but I think I'm right there with you of, just be diligent, use your best interest, use your gut. I say this a lot. Don't be paranoid. I'm not saying be paranoid. These are just some things to really think about and be aware of people, that maybe you've pissed them off or maybe you've upset them or something like that. And they're just trying to, maybe they don't have anything else better to do. I don't know, their feelings are hurt or whatever it is, be aware of that. Know your audience. It's kind of what it kind of comes down to is just know your audience and just take those precautions because ultimately nobody's coming to save us. It's up to you. 30 seconds out, it's a company. I love kind of that mentality. That's one of their slogans is nobody's coming to save us.
Right. There is no extraction, except expect self-rescue.
Right.
So, all right. Well, with that, why don't we just blow the door and get the hell out?
Sweet.
All right, I'm going to hit you guys with the promos really quick, and then I'm going to give you some information on the next episode. All right, everyone, we're taking a brief moment to talk to you about one of our favorite sponsors. That's right. The Barber Collective is a Southern Utah mainstay, U.S. veteran owned with an elite team of classically trained barbers for you to get that dapper do, professional fade, or a cut on the wild side. Competitive pricing with walk-ins available. You won't walk out disappointed that you tried The Barber Collective. Call today and schedule your appointment. Mention oppositional forces and receive your first cut on us. You can schedule online at vagaro.com/barberco. That's VAGARO.com/BARBERCO. Or call them at 435-922-8454. That's 435-922-8454. That's the Barber Collective. Don't let that do you wrong. Go see them today. Check out our friends at Smash Labs Rage Rooms, a Southern Utah exclusive with franchise options available. You won't find another adventure spot quite like this. 5 axe-throwing lanes with a variety of edge weapons and their special Rage Rooms, where you and your friends can work out the day's frustrations by smashing TVs, home appliances, and all kinds of glassware, big and small, and an ever-evolving range of ceramic and miscellaneous items sure to thrill the senses. Call them today and schedule your date night, special event, or even large private parties. Visit their website at www.smashlabs.biz and check out all their special pricing packages, or call 435-359-2214. That's 435-359-2214. Walk-ins welcome. That's Smash Labs Rage Rooms. All right, everybody. Next episode, we're going to be getting into surveillance. So be prepared to start exercising that Dr. Evil side of you. Now that you know what you're looking for, in somebody who's surveilling you, now, we're going to be diving into what best practices, techniques, gear that you can use to take that fight to other people. Because one of the things we do here at Op4 with oppositional forces, is we strongly believe that a good defense is a good offense. And so if we can teach you the offensive techniques of, how to collect and gather intelligence for a myriad of different reasons, nothing nefarious, wink, wink, then that's what we're going to do. So that's what you can expect with the next episode. Sometime this week, we're going to have a guest. Ooh, a guest. It's going to be Kevin Reeve from On Point Tactical, one of my mentors, someone I really have a lot of respect. Mr. Frost and I both, a lot of respect, a lot of admiration for a true professional in his many fields of study. So we're going to be having that hopefully come out sometime toward the end of the week, maybe early next week, just depending on how our schedules line up. So couple of housekeeping notes, some save rounds. Go to our website, badguyforhire.com. We're working a little bit on the website right now. We're trying to get all the links built up so that you can find us just in that one spot. But for now, you can find us on, Facebook, Instagram. I almost said it. But Patreon, that's what I was looking for. And it's patreon.com/oppositional forces. Look, we're doing this for free. Okay. Like we understand what we're getting into here in the beginning, but if you guys like what we're doing, you like where we're going with this, we want to kind of take this on the road a little bit sometimes, maybe get some good gets for interviews. And maybe hopefully if we can get the ball rolling with some merch and some other things, parties, we would really like to build this up into something super cool. And if you like what we're doing, hey, go to Patreon, throw us a little bit of money, and that'd be super dope. So I think that's it. I think that's all we got for you. So we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to Oppositional Forces, Wage War, and Stack Bodies.